Hello, my dear students, and welcome back. I know, your exams are just around the corner, and you might be feeling a little tense about this big history chapter, kings, farmers, and towns. But please don't you worry at all. In the next few minutes, we are going to make this chapter super simple and super easy for you. Ready? Let's dive right in.
So, first things first, let's start with a little mystery. How on earth do we know what kings like the great Ashoka were actually thinking? I mean, they didn't have Instagram or Twitter to post their thoughts, right? So how do we find out? Well, today, we are going to become historical detectives and look for some amazing clues that they left behind.
And here it is, our first big clue. See these strange markings on this stone? These are called inscriptions. Now I want you to think of them as direct messages, kind of like a WhatsApp text, sent to us from thousands of years ago. Yep, these stone secrets are exactly how ancient rulers spoke to their people, and now they're speaking to us.
Okay, so our story begins a long time ago, around the 6th century BCE. Now, this was a time of massive change in India. All of a sudden, new cities and kingdoms started popping up everywhere. You know, a bit like how a new social media app suddenly becomes popular, and everyone just has to be on it. These new kingdoms were India's very first superpowers, and they were called the Mahajanapadas.
This era was a total game changer, believe me. People started using iron a lot more, which of course meant better tools for farming and much stronger weapons. New cities started growing, and for the very first time, people started using coins for buying and selling things. It was also a time of brilliant new ideas with the rise of Buddhism and Jainism. So much was happening all at once.
So there were 16 of these big kingdoms, or Mahajanapadas. Think of them like, 16 big teams competing in a massive tournament, and each team had its own capital city. As you can see on the map here, they were spread all across ancient India. Out of all of them, the two most important ones for you to remember are Vaji and, of course, the most powerful of all, Magadha.
So the big question is, why did Magadha, which is in modern-day Bihar, become the final boss in this whole game? Well, it had some serious superpowers. The land was incredibly fertile, so they had tons of food. They had iron mines to make the best weapons. They had elephants for their army, which were basically the tanks of ancient times. And the river Ganga was like a superhighway for easy transport and trade. All of this just made Magadha unbeatable.
Now, after Magadha came the next level of power, the Mauryan Empire. It was founded by the legendary Chandragupta Maurya, but the most famous ruler, the one whose story we absolutely need to know, is his grandson, Ashoka.
You've all seen this, right? Of course you have. It's on our coins and our rupee notes. This is the lion capital from a pillar built by Ashoka. Ashoka was a true innovator. He was the very first king in India to write his messages on stone pillars and rocks so that every single person in his empire could read them and know what the rules were.
And what kind of messages did he send? Well, here's a little sample. You could say this was his big policy announcement to the public. He talked about respecting your elders, being kind to everyone, and living peacefully. He called this whole collection of good ideas his Dhamma.
Okay, so this is a super important point for your exam. What exactly is Dhamma? Just remember this simple definition. Dhamma was Ashoka's set of moral principles for people to live a good, peaceful, and ethical life. And listen carefully, it was not a new religion. It was a code of conduct for absolutely everyone, no matter which god they worshipped.
Okay, we've talked a lot about kings and huge empires. But what about the common people? You know, what was life like for a farmer or a villager back then? Were they happy with their king? Let's try and find out.
To understand the lives of ordinary people, we look at stories from books like the Jatakas. One story, the Gundatindu Jataka, tells us about a very wicked king who demanded extremely high taxes. His subjects were so unhappy that they actually abandoned their village and ran away to live in the forest just to escape the tax collectors. So this tells us that things weren't always so great between the king and his people.
Now, to pay these high taxes and also to feed the growing cities, farmers had to get smarter. They came up with new tricks to grow more and more food. They started using iron-tipped plows, which could dig much deeper into the fertile soil. They began paddy transplantation, which was incredibly hard, back-breaking work, but it produced a lot more rice. And they built wells and canals for irrigation, so they didn't have to depend only on the rain anymore.
Okay, let's put our detective hats back on for a minute. We saw those inscriptions earlier, right? But how did we ever learn to read that strange ancient writing? Who cracked the code?
The hero of our detective story is an officer who worked for the East India Company.
named James Prinsep. In the 1830s, after years and years of hard work, he did something absolutely amazing. He figured out how to read two of India's oldest scripts, Brahmi and Kharosti. Before he did this, everything we knew about Ashoka was just legends. Prinsep's discovery literally unlocked centuries of our past for us.
But how did he do it? It was brilliant. He found some coins from the Indo-Greek kings, and these coins were like a cheat sheet. They had the king's name written in Greek on one side, which scholars could already read, and in Kharosti on the other side. So by matching the names letter by letter, he created a key to understand Kharosti. This key then helped him unlock Brahmi, the script used in almost all of Ashoka's messages. So clever.
And now look at this. This is amazing. Brahmi is the mother of almost all the scripts we use in India today, including Devanagari, which we use to write Hindi. The letters you write in your notebook today have a direct connection to what Ashoka wrote on those stone pillars over 2,000 years ago. How cool is that?
Coins are also fantastic clues. They tell a story all on their own. First, we had these simple punch-marked coins. Then, the Indo-Greeks started putting their faces on coins, kind of like a profile picture. Later on, the Kushanas issued these beautiful gold coins, which tells us that trade was booming and they were making lakhs and crores of rupees.
All right, my brilliant students, we're almost at the end. Now for the most important part, how to use all this knowledge to get full marks in your exam. Let's move to your exam master plan.
Here are the 5 most important points from this chapter. Quick, you can even take a screenshot of this. First, the 16 Mahajanapadas, with Magadha on top. Second, the Mauryan Empire and Ashoka. Third, Ashoka's Dhamma. Fourth, our sources, that's inscriptions, texts, and coins. And fifth, the story of James Prinsep. Just remember these and you're all set.
Now let's practice a very common 5-mark question. What were the main features of the Mauryan administration? Please don't just write a long paragraph. You have to structure your answer to get the best marks. Here is exactly how you write the perfect answer, point by point. Start with a short introduction about how huge the empire was. Then, you must list the 5 major political centers. Make sure you name them correctly. Then, talk about how they controlled this vast empire through roads and rivers. Mention the strong army, using the details from the Greek ambassador Megasthenes' account. And finally, the masterstroke. Explain how Ashoka appointed special officers, called the Dhamma Mahamatas, to spread his message and keep the empire united. Write these 5 points and you will surely get full marks.
And that's a wrap. See, we've covered the entire chapter. Before you go, here's a little something for you to think about. If you could write a message on a stone for people to find 2,000 years from now, what would you tell them about your life and your world today? Give it a thought. All the very best for your exams, my dears. I know you will all do wonderfully. Study well.